Thank you for joining us, Ian. Your background is in you worked in the general medical ward, and there you saw people with kind of persistent symptoms, often like persistent physical symptoms. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So for the last 15, 16 years or so, I've worked in general medical and surgical wards and outpatient clinics. And I saw lots and lots of different things as sort of various specialties, So I have specialties in the kinds of things you see as a mental health practitioner in the hospital. And one of those things is persistent troubling symptoms. And the types that came to me are usually the type of symptom that persist after the original thing that caused the symptom is gone. So that's often chronic pain is the thing that people think of. But actually, the same principle holds for persistent perceptual symptoms, for mood symptoms, a lot of psychological symptoms as well. And so, yeah, my practice, I've been a psychotherapist for 17 years. And so my practice is predominantly psychotherapeutic, supportive in helping people to navigate those uh, symptoms that go on and on for weeks and months and years.
And you've in the last few years been working on psychedelic trials. Do you see kind of a parallel between some of the kind of post-psychedelic lingering difficulties people can report and things like chronic pain or some of these other persistent physical symptoms?
Yeah, absolutely. I think exactly the same principles apply. So I worked in a trauma ward for years, and so I would see people with most often persistent um, fatigue and pain after they've been in car crashes and things. Um, and then I was actually a psychedelic peer counselor for years with Zendu at Burning Man and other places, uh, and the types of things that I would see people go through there. And then I started to see, extended symptoms in the years afterwards, and on people who were on our clinical trials. Um, it occurred to me that any symptom, so any experience that you have that's troubling and persistent, there's a sort of core set of principles that if you understand them, you can then navigate those symptoms.
What advice do you have then for people if they do experience? I mean, I personally experienced, a lot of lingering symptoms for a while after a bad LSD trip. Um, Anxiety, kind of panic, derealization, things like that. And they would kind of occupy more and more of my attention and focus and really pull me away from life. So, what kind of advice do you have if people are in that situation?
Sure. I should say I've been through. I also went through a challenging experience in 2020 and had some very troubling, persistent symptoms for some months afterwards. Um, and I used it. It was a good opportunity to see if I was a bullshitter. I had to use my own advice. And um, so essentially there's a core of three things that are important, which I'll go through. These might be really obvious to people. They might sound really obvious, but the devil is in the details, I think. So the principle is easy to understand, but then the application, that's what the important part. So that's the first thing to say. The second thing to say is if anyone, if people disagree or they have any pushback on anything I say, please say so, because I think that's where the real learning happens. Because sometimes language is imperfect and it might seem like I'm saying one thing. So if there's anything you disagree with, I'm very, very happy for you to push back. So the three core things are: one is that for any symptom, whether it's physical or psychological, if you pay attention to it all the time, it will persist. Um, and it's often a particular type of attention. It's like paying attention to it in a way that's slightly frantic. I don't want this. I can't stop thinking about it. Get wrapped up in it. So that's the first thing. If you pay attention to it, it will persist, and that just seems to be something that the brain is able to do. Um, and it's totally different from what doctors will often say to people, which is some kind of implication that they're imagining it. It doesn't mean that. It means that the brain generates the symptom when you pay a particular type of attention to it. That's just a fact of how the brain operates. It's true of pain. It's true of anything. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you worry about the symptom. So if you get if it, and what that typically means is that you assign it a kind of a meaning. So if it's pain, people tend to worry about it that like the pain means something. It means I'm damaged. It means I can't do things. It means I'll never be the same again. And with persistent perceptual symptoms after psychedelics, it's usually something along the lines of, I've broken my brain. I'll never be the same again. I did this to myself and it's my fault and it's hopeless. So if you worry about it, and so rumination is the term, if you get into that kind of thinking. And then the third thing is if you change your behavior because of the symptom, that leads into a whole other set of downstream effects that all work together to make sure that things stay the same. So I'll just say those three things again. So if you pay attention to it, and it's a particular type of attention, which is kind of a frantic, it's actually a subtle type of avoidance because you want it to not be there anymore, but you can't stop attending to it. You worry about it, assign it meaning, think about it all the time. And then if you change your behavior for it, those are the three things for all chronic symptoms that all conspire to make it not go away.
And change your behavior how? Like, for example,
Yeah,
can you give some examples?
sure. So it varies, depending on the symptoms. So it's often characterized by kind of with general withdrawal from life or withdrawal from things that you think will make the symptom worse. So, excuse me. And what what that general group of things does is it just makes your life smaller. So there's more space for the symptom to fill up. So if and it so and then sometimes there are specifics. If it's pain, you tend to avoid things that you think will make the pain worse, and that usually makes your body weaker, it makes your joints weaker, it makes your muscles weaker, which makes pain worse. So sometimes there are specific kind of loops. When it's perceptual symptoms, it's different for different people, but it's often characterized by withdrawal from anything that you know from experience makes it worse, and that varies from person to person. Um, but it's but it almost always means that your world shrinks, and when your world shrinks, there's more screen for you to project your worries onto, and there's more attention for you to think about, your symptom and just, really, pay attention to it.
That makes sense. So, what are possible remedies for this trap?
So I think always keep those three things in your mind, because this the starting place is knowing that this is the thing that the brain does, and I don't think we need to appeal to complicated neuroscience, and imaging studies or whatever to understand it. I think it's just to know that it's just you pay attention to it in that way, it will persist, and then know all the other things. I think that's the first thing. That actually those principles are kind of safe to or easy to understand. And then the remedies. Well, I'll go through those three principles one by one and talk about the remedies because this is where the devil is in the details. Um, the for the attention one, there are kind of two parts. One is a sort of acceptance, which is a concept I think that I sometimes I'm misunderstood when I say it, and I think it can sound like I'm saying one thing when I'm saying another. I don't mean that you need to be happy about this new life where you have this debilitating and frightening symptom. It's more that it's more accepting that okay, well this is the way it is for now. That's the foundation for changing it, which is it's one of those things in mental health that feels like a paradox, feels like a contradiction. And once you do that, you can shift the nature of the attention that you pay to the symptom. And I'll try to explain that an analogy because it can be hard to understand. I have a 1-year-old son, but I don't think you don't need to have a child to understand the principle. If you think about if you're at a let's say your friends are over, you're having a dinner party, there's a young child there, a toddler. Um, if he or she keeps coming up to the table to try and get your attention, um, there's two ways you can respond broadly, right? One is you can ignore them, and I think we all know that if you ignore them, what'll happen, right? They get louder and louder, they get more and more upset, more and more frustrated. They'll try and get more and more of your attention. And the second, but they're there, right? You're so ignoring them, but you know they're there, and you're thinking, I really hope he stops. I'm having a conversation. I really hope he stops. You are paying attention to it, but it's a kind of attention where you're like, this isn't, this is annoying. I don't want it. The second thing you do is you can give like 100% of your attention to the little guy or girl for like 20 seconds and say, that's a beautiful picture. Thank you very much for drawing me that beautiful picture. Go away and draw a picture of a fish, or whatever. And then they go off and do that. They're happy. So I hope that analogy kind of explains the difference between the two different types of way that you can deal with something that's kind of intruding on your awareness. You can kind of there's a sort of a frantic kind of, oh, I really want this to stop kind of attention. And then there's a kind of attention which is sort of leaning towards the thing and going, God, that, and for symptoms, it's often very uncomfortable. And I have to be aware because you mentioned the Cheetah Project, and Tim mentioned the Cheetah Project. It's not always, I think the big mistake that people make with meditation is to think, oh, everybody can tolerate every type of distress and inner experience. And so they should all do that in a full throat. And that's not true. You have to do it in a way that's manageable for you. So I think the important caveat here is to the extent that you can, is you turn towards the feeling in a sort of in a less kind of frantic kind of a way. And so say, got a really, and that could be if that's a visual distortion, say, after psychedelics or whatever it is. So for me, it was panic, like Jules, you
Hmm.
said after mine.
Yeah.
And I had to find a way, situations where I could do that. There were some situations I couldn't. The stakes were too high. Um, so to sort of lean towards and sort of embrace, I don't mean like it, but to sort of like lean towards it
Okay.
and fully experience it. So and then you can go, okay, I've done that. I paid attention to the kid with the now I'm choose to bring my attention over something else, somewhere
Okay.
else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. You want to go through quickly the last other two things,
Sure.
but very
Yeah.
quickly because I want to give people the chance to ask you a couple of questions, and then I'm going to put
Sure.
people into breakout rooms. So the
Yeah.
last two ones, yeah.
I'm not in a big rush, by the way. So,
No, it's not that. It's that
but
they
yeah,
want to
I
go
know
to
you have
breakout
a
rooms.
timetable.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. So that's the attention part, and that there's much more to say about that, and I'll send you a link during the week. You can circulate to people. The second one is the worry. So the really important thing here is that the symptom doesn't mean anything. So once we're satisfied that the original cause is gone with any symptom, it doesn't, the only thing that the symptom means is that you have the symptom. That's it. Doesn't mean you're always going to have it. Doesn't mean you broke your brain. Doesn't mean you're an idiot because you took psychedelics. So any time that you're getting wrapped up in that very, very, it's a very seductive thing to do to worry because sometimes it makes you feel like at least you're doing something about it. You're worrying, you're thinking about it. This is not the type of problem that you can think your way out of. A lot of us have spent our whole lives laboring under this Western illusion that we solve problems by thinking about them. The vast majority of problems we solve when we're busy doing something else, brain figures it out in the background. So remember that the symptom doesn't actually mean anything, and notice when you're getting sucked into that kind of rumination spiral. And that's related to then the third thing, which is the behavior change. Because so try not to adapt your life at all because you think the symptom is telling you to. Um, and the things that fill your life make less and less room for your attention and for your worry. And that is it's I could talk for 12 hours about that. It's different for different people. It means connection. It means meaning and purpose. Um, and it means, doing the things that your brain likes to do, problem solving, creativity, all those things. I really feel like I don't done that third part justice, but the principle is that, anything that you do that fills your life, which is the opposite of what the experience, the symptom wants you to do, makes less room for it, and it does shrink and shrink and shrink over time. So that's it. Those are the
That's
principles.
brilliant. So the three ones again, just to go, what are the three traps?
So yeah, anything you pay attention to will persist.
Hmm.
Particularly if that's that frantic kind of I don't want this attention. The second thing is the worry makes it persist. So
Hmm.
that assigning it meaning, the
Yeah.
symptom means this.
Hmm.
And then the third thing is you change your life because of the symptom, and
Hmm.
that stops you from recovering.
Right, right, right. Very interesting. It reminds me of you've probably come across this, Ian, about the second arrow idea in Buddhism. There's the kind of there's pain, and then there's the meaning we
Yeah,
ascribe to pain. And that
yeah,
mean we don't always have control over a symptom, but we have some control over the meaning and story we
that's
attach
right.
to it. And if you
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
a very negative story, you're making it far worse. Like, what an idiot, I've broken myself, I'll never be who I was before.
Hmm.
These kinds of things. This is going to last forever. These kinds of things. I'll never get better. These are all stories we attach.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's a question here. Thank you so much, Ian. A couple of quick questions, and then we'll put people into breakout rooms. Jacob asks, I'm going to turn off recording actually. Actually, I'll keep recording for the
I
rest.
have, I can read them out if you like as I answer them.
Yeah.
If that's easier. So, Jacob, how do you approach OCD-like symptoms? For example, if you are self-monitoring your responses to intrusive thoughts, images. So, it's actually exactly the same principles. So, in OCD, the symptom is an intrusive thought or image, and then we do something to make it go away immediately. So you could sort of think of it like an addiction, like anything you do to make the feeling go away, you get this loop, and it's very like the phobic loop you get with any phobia, you know. So you get an experience, which is fear in a phobia or an intrusive image or, you know, perceptual distortion, whatever it is. You do something to make it go away, and the thing that you do to make it go away makes the symptom worse. Um, and that's just a fact. It's you can actually understand why that happens, but it is a fact. So in OCD, the principles are the same. So all psychological treatments for OCD involve a thing called exposure in response to prevention, which actually is just a slightly different way of describing the same things that we've just talked about. So the intrusive image or thought comes, and you gradually get better at exposing to it and without responding to it in the way that makes it worse. So identical. Same with all symptom, all psychological treatments for PTSD are also involve the same principles. Anytime there's that loop of experience, behavior makes the experience worse. So exactly the same. Um,
Okay.
um,
So we've got so Jacob also says the balance between practices that seem to help or using those practices avoidance. Okay, so every practice can be used as an avoidance thing. I
mm,
remember meditating when I was younger, like, please don't let me have any negative thoughts, and that was so
yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
avoidant. Catherine says,
yeah.
noticed low tolerance in my nervous system for stressors. Suggestions on how to create more resilience?
So I might just make a comment about that first question before coming to the second one, but because I think
We
it's
don't
a
have very
really
much time,
important
just to say, Ian.
uh, a really important point to know when you're doing one or the other. So am I doing something because you know because and it's avoidance. And I think two ways that I'd answer that. One is if it's frantic, it's avoidance, even if if sort of feels like it's not avoidance. So you can frantically do something that terrifies you, and then you're more scared of it afterwards. So if it feels kind of frantic, like no, I'll push it away, that's probably avoidance. But if it's a kind of a calmer kind of leaning towards, and you know, then it's not. I think that's a sort of simple way. If you're going towards recovery or away from fear, that's sort of another way of thinking about it. Low tolerance in nervous system for stressors. Um, so I think I would probably have to know a little bit more to answer. I think you're describing something that could refer to a number of different underlying mechanisms. One could be the sort of uh, overall background increased arousal that people get in a sort of a PTSD like sort of you know loop where there's a sort of a mental avoidance of memories and so on that causes you to be constantly kind of hyper vigilant and jumpy and so on, and where you always live quite close to that line where you know you go over the edge when something's stressful, or it could be kind of you know chronic stress in the background that could be caused by you know anything from you know work stress, dietary stress, and so on, so that you always live quite close to that line as well. So I think it's difficult to say anything general about that what you've said there, Catherine, because I think that would kind of involve teasing apart exactly what that low tolerance for nervous for stressors would be.